Welcome to another conversation in our FM Expert series. Today I'm joined by Mark Griffiths. Mark is the founder of WMA and also the chair of judges of the IWFM Impact Awards. And Mark, you've been in FM for around 35 years, we worked out.
Yeah, unfortunately or fortunately, depending how you look at it, yeah.
Mark is going to be talking to us about the importance of teams and has got a huge amount of knowledge in FM, is just going to pull out some really key points. So Mark, thank you for doing this. I know how busy you are. Really appreciate your time. And I've been looking forward to this, so I'm going to hand over to you and just listen and learn.
Well, I don't know whether you would the best, but hopefully there's some bits there that I can help with. I think some of this will probably be punctuated a little bit by my career path. I think as you and I were chatting a few weeks ago, I'm an operator at heart. Moved into consultancy, 4 or 5 years ago now, nearly. And that was always an ambition I had. But everything that I've picked up through operational experience, which I think gives us a unique platform in terms of what I do work-wise now, because you can speak with some credibility about what you've done. But I've also seen some really good and some really rubbish team performance in the past, and hopefully picks up a lot of useful information I can share with a few people if they are interested in watching this video to take it forward. So, I've always been fascinated by teams anyway, like a lot of sport and that kind of thing. But as I kind of matured in my career, I became more tuned into looking at sports I didn't play necessarily, and coaches and leaders in those areas and how they influenced outcomes and the approaches that they've taken. And I was fortunate in the late 90s to be, because I come very much from a vocational background, engineer by profession. Didn't pay a lot of attention at school. Did when I went to college. Really enjoyed college because it was very practical and everything else. But ended up doing a master's in my early 30s at Leeds Beckett in FM. Very fortunate to work for a really clever guy, Stuart Davis, who used to be the head of building and property, which was the old civil service property division back in the day, which eventually became Interserve a long time ago. To cut a long story short, Stuart was a very smart lad, and probably my first proper mentor that I had. Encouraged me to go forward for this master's route, which I did, and I think that really punctuated a lot of the learnings I had. I soon realised I was an okay engineer, but I had a real massive interest in people. And worked on some huge infrastructure schemes under PFI, always as an FM, always as an operator. But that threw me into a really eclectic mix of people. You could see what they were doing with teams and understand how that can drive success and performance. And for me, I think that's something that I've always been fixated about ever since. I think there's some really good stuff that's out there that can be easily applied no matter what environment you're in. And I think the key thing is just garnering that common interest with people. I think getting people on board, putting yourself in their shoes, which is probably easier for me coming from an operational background, some others who perhaps come through an academic route. I think that really helps. I think that really gives you a lot of credibility with people. You don't necessarily have all the answers, but I think if you're prepared to be in their environment, see what they've got to put up with, and the like, I think that really helps. I think one of the best experiences I've had with that was when I was with Bouygues. So David Carr, who's a previous winner of Leader of the Year for the IWFM Awards, was my boss. Super smart guy. Don't think I've worked with anyone much cleverer than him. But very focused on the customer, very focused. But he also looked at internal and external customers. So he would look at the teams working for him. We used to he had a lot of, how can I put it? A lot of credence put on back to the floor initiatives. He would do back to the floor initiatives. We would all do them. Every single member of the senior management team had to do them, and so it'd be a running joke. Director A would turn up to do the cleaning with somebody at a big government building, and the cleaning team would moan that their productivity was down for the day because
exactly.
we couldn't keep up and that kind of thing. But
Can I ask you a question about back to the floor? I think some organisations do it as a tick box exercise, don't they?
Yeah,
we've done it, you know, one shift, hour and a half, photo opportunity. If organisations are going to do that and they're going to do it effectively, what sort of duration should a director, a manager do that for? What do you think would be reasonable to be effective?
I think for it to be impacting, I think we were doing it for a minimum for a whole day. It wasn't just an hour and a half. Or
okay.
Yeah. It was kind of, you know, turn up on site. You're doing it for a whole day. The site would dictate the workload. There was a really funny one where we had once where what you used to do was you would be moved out of your region to do it, so you wouldn't do it on the projects, which is good. Yeah. Nobody's kind of doffing their cap to the boss as it comes through the door and everything else, which was quite funny. But that I had one guy on a schools project at the time who decided that he was going to have a lot of sport. I think my one turned out to be a Friday afternoon, sod's law, you know, and on Friday, and then in the afternoon, I'm crawling through this ceiling void of a Victorian school trying to help a guy change something in a water tank or something ridiculous. He thought it was hilarious, and then 2.5 months later, they changed the regions, and his school came under my control, which was slightly different.
Oh, I think that's good.
But it was good fun. But no, it was good, and I think that was probably also a kind of measure of the culture in the business, that people felt they could have that little bit of sport as well, without there being ramifications to it, which was nice. But yeah, I think I've been lucky. I've worked with some really talented people, for some talented people that have really shown me some good insight into teams and team building, and that kind of, along with my kind of geeky inclinations towards sports and the like, I think has really helped me. But I think one of the most powerful things is just the engagement with the team, understanding the challenges they face, not being driven by a spreadsheet, not being driven by, you know, metrics are important, don't get me wrong, trends and analysis and appropriate measurement of things. You know, there's some people that become almost obsessed about measuring stuff and not necessarily looking at quality. Yeah, and I think that balance between qualitative and quantitative is huge.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, and I think, you know, data is a massive deal nowadays. Don't get me wrong, but I'm a great believer that the industry needs to step up, to give us more qualifications to handle data, so you know that an FM has got the skills to deal with data, but data's been around for years. It's not a new thing. It's just more readily available in a very shorter period of time. Yeah. But we've always had to make decisions mainly from disparate systems. Yeah. Now you can kind of bring all that together.
Well, and the more evidence-based your decisions can be, justifying the why, and then you're more likely to get things signed off, potentially if it's by somebody more senior. Exactly. But also having the measurement allows you to show the difference that change has made, and that's really powerful.
Because if you've got that data, you can talk to your teams about that data, but you can also talk about what's going on from a quality perspective. Are you listening to your customers, both internal and external? Yeah. Something that I've always been particularly focused about, because I think sometimes people, don't get me wrong, we will have our paymasters and the client dictates what they want and where they want it. But for something to work on a big scale, it's got to be co-joined, and you can do so much more with teams, both your own team where you're delivering a service, but also the wider team, the client team, if you've got a genuine informed approach to it, an informed client and an informed provider, and they're working collaboratively for a common cause. Some people won't want to do that, but where you are, you'll get high performing teams, in my view.
So we're talking about the importance of teams. We're talking about high performing teams. So far, you've given some really useful pointers. You've talked about it's important to have a common interest. It's important to put yourself in their shoes, to understand their environment, to see what they're putting up with. We talked about the Back to the Floor initiative, getting the team engaged. We talked about data. What other things, if we've got somebody listening now who's thinking, how do I do this? What other little nuggets can you give them?
I think the key one for me that I wish I'd known when I became interested in management as a career option, probably in my mid to late 20s. I thought, actually, I like being with people. I like working together with others.
Yeah.
I like to make it fun where I can. And how can I do that better? Knowing what I know now,
yeah,
I think what I would say to people is use your ears and mouth in the right ratio, not the opposite way around.
Yeah.
For me, I was quite headstrong when I was younger, and I felt I had some ability and could do something. But I think and sometimes you'll get there with your own sheer will and determination, but you can make that path a lot smoother if you're doing that in a lot more engaged way. Sometimes a little bit stubborn. I'm going to do this anyway, but I'm just nose to the grindstone, get on with it. But I think if you're doing things in that way, I think that helps. I think and I think that people are a lot more aware now about the different skills that different people from different personality types bring.
Yeah.
And that's something I've picked up over probably the last 20 odd years, and things like, and understanding that, putting yourself in a position where you can understand what difference those people can bring now. You see it so much in what we're trying to do in the industry, because those people can bring some of those analytical skills, some of those presentational skills.
Yeah.
But the key one for me is listen to what's being said by the team that are doing it for you. Go with your gut. There's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah, and I think if you look at your career, you started very much on the sort of hard services, technical. That was your kind of schooling, if you like, wasn't it? That was your trade. What you then obviously had to learn is all the other stuff, and what you often find with, in inverted commas, sort of softer side FMs is they might have the communication skills, but they don't have the technical skills, and
yes.
We need this balance, don't we?
We do, yeah. And I think it comes, and I think that there's lots of opportunities for people to, especially nowadays, to really embrace a lot of that. There's people of my vintage who kind of understand the impact of decisions that are being made, we can share that knowledge with people probably at the beginning of their career who are really, really smart at driving the data. And so you've almost got this kind of virtuous circle of mentoring where you're mentoring them, and there's a reverse mentoring happening with them, which I've seen put in play before as well.
Yeah.
And that works. That works really well. If you get that working well, I'm a bit of a sucker for developing people. I love it. I just love seeing people flourish in teams, and that's why I'm so focused on it, because I just get a kick out of it. It's a slightly different dynamic now with what I'm doing. But I still, if somebody says to me, "Oh, can you come to site for a site meeting rather than do it on Teams?" I'm there. I just like that interaction with people and getting stuck in and getting it to work. But I think listen to the team that are delivering, listen to the client as well, and keep the messaging simple. That's half of it. Just we all get.
Oh, that's a really good one. That keep the messaging simple. When I do training, it doesn't matter what the subject is. One of the things I always say, but particularly around something like health and safety, is when you're writing documentation, whether it's a risk assessment or a procedure, write it so a 10-year-old could understand it.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm subject to a lot of waffling. I can prattle on for ages, and I know I am, especially when I write. But I've seen people keep messaging really succinct, and I think you got to continue to be open-minded about where you go with these things. I think that's the key one for me. And if you're open-minded to that, you're people who are working with you. I don't like using the phrase "for you," but people who are working with you and alongside you to deliver something, whether they're client or not, that it just makes it so much simpler. But you've got to be consistent with the messaging. Flip-flopping around, oh, we're doing this week, we're doing that next week. If you're in any shape or form leading people, it will just turn people off, and won't give you that performance level. But I've seen some really good. I've been fortunate worked and seen a lot of really smart people, and I think they do a really good really good job. But yeah, build up trust would be the key one for me.
Being smart though, Mark, doesn't mean you're a good manager, doesn't mean you're a good leader, does it?
No.
Do you know what I mean?
Is I've seen people do these things in a smart way.
Yeah.
And they're saving themselves time, effort, and energy. I'm sure they still stress. We all do. They stress about it. Go away, do the proverbial swan impression. Where it's all calm on the surface, and you're paddling underneath. But I think we all do that. But people like that.
And isn't it also about trying to make people feel safe? Because if we feel safe, we feel like we can share our thoughts and opinions. And I think, a lot of the series of these is about people who are newer into FM. And I think when you're new, certainly I can only speak for myself. At 23, I didn't want to put my head above the parapet and say, I don't know how to do that.
Yes.
I don't know that. And that's really dangerous. Having people in the team who won't
Agreed.
Be prepared to say. So I think making people feel safe and having a culture that kind of fosters that is also really important.
I agree. And I think, there's some really smart people out there. It's a phrase I use a lot, sorry, but there's some people out there who are really, really good at making people feel comfortable. So someone I think is really, really good at that is Liz Kentish. She does a really good job in that. She's a natural people person. She builds up a rapport with you and does it really well. I worked with a lady called Jane Sampson a long time ago, who's my client on one of the biggest PFI projects in the country, and she was fantastic at it as well. And people like that, and they're very natural. No airs or graces about them. Well, I'm this, you're that, and that Two Ronnies sketch. Well, I don't talk to that person and all that kind of thing. You don't want any of that. You just want people to feel calm and comfortable. There'll be pressure, there'll be hassle. But it's probably why we work in this industry, because we thrive off that pressure.
Mostly,
most of us do. Most of us. Some people, but I think you just got to get that balance right. Acknowledge when people are performing well. Give them a helping hand. Not chastise them when they're not, because they'll see where it can take them. But I think if you can keep that engagement with people, keep them on the side, listen to them, it helps. But I think when genuine high performing teams, I think, are everybody. Client, provider, in-source team, however you're structured. It's that. It's the whole piece. It's a bit utopian, but it does work. I've seen it work well, and it works really well.
Listen, you've just done a lovely little close there, so I'm gonna stop us there, because that's fantastic. I've written, about 20 bullet points of things you've said. So
sorry, I did say I'll prattle on a bit.
You may not realise, but there's a lot of really good content in there. So listen, Mark, I am going to say thank you for doing this. Thank you for giving your time, and it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.